Welcome to the Fill Your Cups podcast. I'm your host, Morgan, and I am doing a single episode this week because my typical co-host, Bailey, is out on podcast maternity leave with her sweet, sweet daughter and my niece, Mila Rose. So we are just hitting a solo episode today, and I am talking about something that has been very real for me recently, which is dealing with disappointment and giving yourself grace and just kind of wading through that, because disappointment is so real and so heavy, and it can be something as small as plans falling through, or it can be something as big as getting a job rejection, or you're trying, you got your period and you didn't want to. I hate that we go through so much disappointment in life, but we do. And it has been something that I've been struggling with a lot lately. And I have found that giving myself grace in the midst of disappointment is a really big struggle. So I kind of wanted to talk through that with you all and get into it. So I knew we were due for a Let's Get Deep episode. And a lot of the time we choose these episodes by just talking about what we're going through, and hopefully you hearing someone else going through it, if you are going through it or have been through it recently or go through it in the future, you know that you can come back to this episode and feel affirmed and validated, and maybe walk away with a tip or two about what you can do moving forward. So before I get into the episode, we always say what's filling our cups. So today I have in my I Woof You coffee mug that my friend Courtney got me, I have just a coffee, but I did make some homemade pumpkin spice creamer, and it's really good, I think, and was super easy. So the recipe is really easy. I'll link it. I'll put it in the show notes, but it was just 2 cups of whatever milk you want. I do almond milk because I don't really rock with dairy that great, but you could do dairy milk, or you could do oat milk, or cashew milk, or whatever kind of milk. I think there's even macadamia milk these days. I don't know. But anyway, you can do whatever kind of milk you want. It's 2 cups of that, half a cup of pumpkin puree, not like the pumpkin pie filling, the actual like pureed pumpkin, or pure pumpkin is what it's called, 100% pumpkin. Half a cup of that, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, or what I did was a teaspoon of cinnamon and a teaspoon of pumpkin spice, and a little splash of vanilla, and you blend it all up, and then you stick it in like a mason jar or a cleaned out pasta jar, or whatever kind of jar or container you have, and you just splash them into your coffee. So that's what I have going on here, is a little pumpkin spice latte situation. And then it's perfect because this mug is from my friend Courtney, and we always do a shout out. And I wanted to shout out Courtney today because my last solo episode was a bit of fun episode. Go back to it if you haven't listened to it. It was episode 70, and it was all about the summer I turned pretty. So very fun episode. Even if you don't watch the show or don't intend to watch the show or read the books, I feel like I listened back to it and I was like, this is so goofy. But it was just kind of my internal monologue of how I felt about the books versus the movies, all the differences and whatnot. So my friend Courtney, after listening to that episode, she had been taking notes in her iPhone notes app and sent me a screenshot of the notes that she took. And I just loved it. It was so fun. And I always love to hear when you guys have feedback. I've had a few friends do this in the past where they listen to an episode and they kind of like take some notes or start writing out a text to me, and they've got a bunch of bullet points about their thoughts on the episode. And I just love that. So shout out to Courtney for being an invested listener or watcher wherever she listens or watches this podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and then Amazon Music, all the other kind of extraneous ones that you could possibly listen to. We're on them all. So if you are listening or watching and you have some notes from this episode that you want to share with me, I just love to read through those and hear what you're thinking and talk with you about them. So shout out to Courtney. And now we are going to get on to our episode for the day. I do need to take a drink though, real quick, because my coffee's only like half gone and I'm not firing on all cylinders yet. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I need to actually drink this during the episode. And that's kind of tough whenever someone else is not talking and Edward's just like sleeping next to me. So just a second. Okay. Hopefully by the end of this episode, I'm just like, but anyway, we always talk about when we talk about our episodes, how we came to think of them. And for me, I just feel like disappointment has been something I've really been facing lately, in particularly in my career and career search, I guess, and just thinking in general about, yeah, my career and work life in general. So that's been something I've been struggling with and has been very heavy on me lately. And it's been honestly months that that's been the case. And so I've just been like, I can't keep sitting with how heavy this feels. And I need to start figuring out some things, because I know for me, and I don't know for you guys, but when I get a job rejection or I get feedback, like not even feedback, but just something that changes in my job that makes my life harder and makes me really disappointed, or even something as small as like plans falling through with friends, so something like that. I leave the situation and I pretty immediately am really hard on myself. And it's just kind of an instinctual, impulsive, I don't know, it's a instinctual response, I think, to face some sort of disappointment, get some bad news, something like that, and then just immediately be like, oh my gosh, I suck, I'm a loser, I'm a failure, I can't do this, whatever. And I feel like for a long time, I was doing better with this because I was practicing a lot of positive self talk and I was doing affirmations and I was just in general, my mind space was better. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But I don't know about you, but I feel like that's something that I have been facing recently. And I'm just noticing. And like last week, Jared and I were on one of our walks and I had gotten some frustrating news, disappointing news. And I was talking to him about it. And of course, I was crying because I was on my period and I was just like overwhelmed and emotional in general. But I was like, gosh, I feel like such a loser. I just feel like I'm what am I doing with myself? Like what am I worth? Like just a lot of really rare upsetting feelings that if you're sitting in that constantly, it's a recipe for depression. It's a recipe for going backward in whatever it is that you're trying to move forward on, and kind of sitting and wallowing and just, yeah, it's just not helpful. So I really felt like it would be good to talk about this. And I kind of want to run through some points about disappointment and grace, and like giving yourself grace in general, and just kind of validate some of your feelings if you have gone through this at all recently. There's just so many ways that I remember whenever I was doing Beachbody or It's Body Now, and I was regularly pursuing, building a business there. And it was really fun. And there were really great parts of it and things that got me really excited. But there were, metrics that you had to hit, for instance. And actually, in my current job, there are still metrics. And that is part of what can sometimes be disappointing and frustrating when you don't hit them, especially when money is involved. And so I know with Body, like there was this thing called Success Club that you could hit every month. And it was basically just getting 3 people involved or re-involved, like invested or reinvested in a program, a workout program, or a product, like a meal replacement, Shakeology, or something like that. And just something that would help them. And I love doing Body. I still do it. I still do the programs and some of the products, and loved it so much. So it didn't feel weird to me to be like building this business, but there still were those numbers in effect. And if I got to the end of a month and I didn't hit Success Club, the 3 people being invested or reinvested, I would get pretty disappointed. But I had, obviously, that's like a little bit lighter disappointment. So maybe that's part of why. But I felt like I was able to shrug it off a little bit easier than I have been lately. And so I think that I've been falling back into some shame and like not giving yourself grace and that sort of thing. And that's been making the disappointment hit harder. So I just kind of want to talk a little bit about those feelings, where you might be feeling that, what parts of life you might be feeling that in, and then how we can maybe take some actions to prevent those feelings, deal with those feelings, acknowledge them, and then also have some productive progress moving forward, So I need this as much as you. If you've been having disappointing news, then I'm with you and it's really hard. So first I want to talk about why disappointment is so hard. And the first reason is there's unmet expectations and then there's the reality, right? So you have these expectations and, say it's with a job. You've applied to a job. You've gone through 3 interviews with the job. I'm not speaking from experience here or anything, but you've gone through 3 or 4 interviews with the job. Things look great. You've crushed it. You are so excited. And you have these expectations. You start building these things in your head of, oh my gosh, like if I had this job, well, then I would have this different commute to work, or I would have a different team, or I would be starting here, or the pay would be better, or the benefits would be better, or, trajectory, I have more growth movement or something like that. That you just start to build these things in your head, and it's kind of impossible not to. I would like to hear if you're listening to this and you feel like, oh yeah, I don't do that whenever I start to think about something that could happen. I don't dream about the possibility and what that would actually look like. I don't visualize that. That is something that is so real. And when you kind of set those expectations in your brain and then they go unmet, and then the reality is that, oh, actually, you don't get the pay increase, you don't get the better benefits, you don't have the adjusted commute or better company culture or movement upward. You're just stuck right where you were at. It is so hard. It is so heavy. And I can't imagine for like people starting to build a family. You start to dream these dreams, and infertility and inability to have children these days, like I don't want to get too into it because I haven't had that, fortunately, and I am not experiencing that. And I know it's so raw, but you start to dream about these things. You start to dream about a life that you want to create. Or for those of you that have been struggling with singlehood, you probably at a younger age, you've been dreaming of the life that you're going to build with a partner and what that looks like, and when you guys will get a dog or start having kids or get a house or go on date nights or just have like chill every night dinners at home with someone else, just simple things. You start to build those dreams in your head. And, if you're in a relationship where it feels like you're going that way and then you have a breakup and you lose it's just so shitty. So it's really, there's these big feelings, there's these big emotions, and it's so important not to minimize those things. So I am going to talk a little bit about tips that you could maybe take away and apply to give yourself grace and kind of move forward. But I do want to say that acknowledging the emotions and not dismissing them or minimizing them or pushing them off is really key, because if you never acknowledge them, and you just minimize them, then that is still there. It's still hanging on, right? Like it still is built up in your system. At some point, you're going to have to acknowledge those feelings. And the other reason that it's so hard is not just these big feelings. I mean, I guess this is a feeling, but it triggers so much shame. Like I was saying before, it triggers this shame of, if you have a breakup, you just are spiraling about all the things that you could have done differently. If you have a job rejection, you're just spiraling about how, I mean, for me, like I start to say things like, oh God, I'm just such a loser. Like nobody wants me. I'm not valuable. I'm not worthy. The only thing that I can do is stay stagnant and I'm never going to get any better than this. Or, if I'm sure with even like infertility, there are things like that. Like, oh, well, you get your period this month and you're like, oh, I didn't time it right. Or you just think about all the things that you could be doing differently, and how you failed yourself, or your body has failed yourself, or your personality has failed yourself, whatever it is. It sucks, it sucks. So I do want to say it's so important to acknowledge those feelings and sit with them for a while. And specifically, there are a few ways I feel like I'm leaning on to sit with my feelings without judgment. So, one of those ways I have been trying to get into meditating, and I know you probably heard this a million times, but Jared actually meditates regularly. He's very good at it. He primarily does it for anxiety and specifically before like anxious situations. He does it pretty much daily, but I think he amps it up a bit whenever we're going to go to like a really crowded, loud environment, or we're going to go to a family event that might be a little tense, or, you just don't know. Like he kind of does it preventatively. I think he's great at that. And recently he shared 3 months of the Waking Up app, which is by Sam Harris, that he uses. I'll link that in the show notes too. Actually, maybe I can even share another like 3-month free membership in the notes too. But he shared that with me, and I was like, yeah, I really need to start like a daily meditation habit, because there's just something about you're sitting, I mean, you have dedicated time sitting there. And when a feeling comes up like, oh, I suck, then you can sit there and have the space to acknowledge that feeling and go and just get curious about it. Go, where is that coming from? Why do I feel that way? What maybe past events are leading me to believe that this is true? And also sit there and tell yourself, you know what? That's just a thought. Like, I suck. That's just a thought. Feelings are just thoughts that we give power to. And yes, they come up. And I feel like when I'm a newbie meditator, it's only been like 2 weeks, but I feel like I've noticed that when I have that, I give myself that space, just 10 minutes or something, to just be with myself, eyes closed, just being present with my breath, and a thought comes up like that, I go, wow, where does that come from? And it really gives myself the ability to look at that thought, feel it out without judgment, and just not really, I'm acknowledging it, and I'm going, okay, like, I don't know where that comes from, but I'm going to acknowledge it, and I'm going to move on from it, I think. Or, just not dismiss it. Just decide, does this serve me? Does it not? And figure out like, okay, if that comes up in the future, how can I move past that? So I think meditation is great. Journaling is another great thing of this. One time a friend, when I was having a really it was like in my previous career, I was having career issues again. I think that's where a lot of disappointment lies for me sometimes, because it's just such a cultural form of success, I think. And when you feel like you're doing bad in your job or you're not getting the results that you want, it's just a very obvious disappointment. So she was telling me previously when I was experiencing this, like, why don't you just take a second and just brain dump, journal out all of the things that you did, and and really just like, you did a shit ton. She was just emphasizing like, you did a shit ton of stuff for this specific project, and you deserve to go through that list and like list it all out and look at it and be like, wow, I did all that. And it doesn't even have to be that you did it well. Like, just the fact that you did it all is big. So I feel like that's a practice that could really help you if you are down on yourself, if it comes to like a career thing or like a business building thing, or even like in a relationship, I really put my all into this, or I think that it could be really helpful. So that's another thing. Obviously, talking about it, if you're an external processor like I am, talking about it with a safe person, your therapist, if you have one, or your partner, or just someone that is safe for you and not someone that's going to criticize you. I feel like that's a really good way to kind of sit with the feelings without judgment, get them off your chest, and then also just allow yourself some time to grieve the version of events that you had hoped to happen. So if you got your period this month and you didn't want to, like, grieving the fact that of those things that you dreamt about, and be like, letting yourself be sad about that. If you didn't get the job, letting yourself be sad about, oh my gosh, like not getting those perks that you were hoping for, or that promotion that you were hoping for. If it's grieving the fact that you didn't make like the leaderboard for this month or something like that, or grieving the fact, like, allow yourself to grieve a relationship that's ending. That's hard, allow yourself that space and time to grieve. I think that that's really big, and how a way that you can sit and just be with your feelings without judging your feelings. And then moving on from the feelings and moving away, sitting with your feelings without judgment, I do want to talk specifically about giving yourself grace and how we can do that and how we can start to get better at doing that. And I am doing this as much as you. So I want you to know that I'm giving you this advice because I need it too. So let's work on this together. But one thing that a question that would be really good, and I'm so big on questions you can ask yourself to get better at something. I think that being curious about our lives and reflecting on our lives is the only way that we can progress and get better in our lives. So I feel like people are, a phrase that I always like from a previous podcaster is that we don't learn from our past, we learn from reflecting on our past. And it seems so simple, but reflection and curiosity, that is what's going to help us get there. Because if we, like, everybody can have a past, but if we never think about it and look at it and dive into what happened and why and how we felt about it, we really can't learn from it. So the question that I would say to ask yourself when you're giving yourself grace is these things that you're saying to yourself. So like self-talk specifically, would you say these kinds of things to a friend? And more specifically, now that I have a niece, I keep thinking, would I say this kind of thing to my niece? Would I ever let someone say this kind of thing to my niece? Because guess what? I'm someone's niece, and all of us are someone's son, daughter, niece, nephew. We we are so hard on ourselves when I would never be that hard on my niece. And yeah, sometimes like you're a little bit harder on, like, sometimes I can be hard on like my sister or something, but actually no. Like I want the best for my sister. I would never, if she was talking bad, if she was like, I'm such a loser, I'd be like, no, you are not. Are you kidding me? If any of my sisters said that about themselves, I'd immediately be like, you take that back. That's my sister you're talking about. You know what I mean? So this is something that I feel like I need to get better about, is when I say something to myself, would I be okay with saying that to Mila? No, I wouldn't. So that's something that I feel like could really help you if you do like a little check whenever you're dealing with disappointment and you go into this self-shame and all of that, and you're spiraling, and you're saying to yourself, gosh, like, no, I deserve to be alone. Nobody would ever want to be my partner. I'm definitely not a good partner, or something like that. Would you say that to your niece or your daughter or your best friend or your sister? Would you, if they were saying that about themselves, would you immediately dismiss it? Yes, you would. So come on, be gentle with yourself. Or if you're like, God, I'm just such a shitty employee. Nobody wants me. I'm not valuable. I have no skills. My background sucks. Like, I'm not worth anything. I would, no. Like, I would not be okay with Mila saying that about herself, or Bailey for that matter, or Julia, or Chloe, like any of my sisters. I would not be okay with that. And yeah, I just think it's a good reminder. And going into that more about the self-talk, figuring out how can you reframe these things. So instead of thinking like, I'm, I didn't get this job, I'm a failure. Now, we've already acknowledged those emotions. So I do want to say that before you think I'm dismissing, because that's not what I'm doing. But instead of I'm a failure, can you say, okay, I learned from that experience. Every experience is a learning opportunity, and not getting this job just prepared me better for what I can do in the next one. Or if, a relationship didn't go your way, instead of being like, gosh, I'm just so unlovable. First of all, no, you're not. And I probably love you. I love most people in my life. So you're probably not unlovable. But instead of like, I'm unlovable, can you think, that just wasn't the right fit for me. And now I know what I'll be looking for in a future relationship, or no, now I know what I can work on for a future relationship. So, how can you take negative self talk and kind of make it more constructive? Another thing to practice giving yourself grace, can you revert back to just some kindnesses for yourself? Just be a little softer with yourself just for a period. My sister Julia, not Bailey, but my sister Julia was kind of giving me some advice about this. I really loved it. She was like, "Have you ever thought about just taking a week off thinking about career growth and expectations for your career? Have you ever thought about just like, I'm just going to take a vacation in my brain. I'm going to tell myself, you know what? This week I get a week off of thinking about job applications or promotions or percentages or anything like that. I'm just going to take a week off." And I love that. I think that that's one way you can be soft with yourself and say, you deserve a break. Let's give you one. Another thing is like, could you take a rest day? So I haven't talked about this that much, but there's a lot of disappointment that comes when you're on like a fitness journey and you have a little bit of a setback. Can you, instead of working, going into a bunch of cardio or something, we talked a little bit about this mindset in last week's episode about staying active with Morgan Kurtz, episode 71. But instead of being like, oh, now I have to run like 5 miles because I had the setback, could you just, maybe you could take a rest day. Maybe you just need a break. I'm not saying treat yourself to a whole pizza and ice cream and wallow and whatever, but like maybe you could sleep in for a day. Maybe you could give yourself just a little bit of grace. You could maybe if you just had a relationship, and when I say relationship, it could be romantic, but it could also be friendship. You just had a tough friendship, or things have been weird in your friendship or something like that, and you feel disappointed. Can you just go like buy some comfy PJs and sit and watch Someone Great, my favorite girl movie? Sit and watch it, and just give yourself some grace and tell yourself, this is intentional. You're not just falling into it, because it's so easy to fall into depression and spiral and just get into a down in the dumps mood. But could you just, take an intentional day or week or couple of days or something like that, and just give yourself soften your feelings toward yourself. And intentionally, that action, I feel like, will also help you pair it with the verbalization and the self-talk and whatnot. That action will go hand in hand with you taking care of yourself mentally too. Now, I do want to talk about some tangible things that we can do to prep for future failures. So maybe you haven't had a disappointment recently and you're like, man, sorry, Morgan, but I am flying high. First of all, knock on wood for you. I'm so happy for you. Knock on wood, but not in the way that Taylor is talking about in Life of a Showgirl. If you know, you know. But anyway, knock on wood. I hope that everything goes well for you for the rest of time. But inevitably, you will face disappointment. And what you can do to prepare is first of all, normalize setbacks as a part of growth. So when you have a setback, if it's in your health journey or fitness journey or something like that, a setback is normal for growth. Actually, having a setback and having to work through that makes you so much stronger on the other side. Or if you're, in a business building, I remember that setbacks whenever I was in body, like sometimes they would be so disappointing. But then I was like, you know what? Actually, I needed that setback in order to be the girl that makes this next milestone. And so sometimes I think that with the current, job situation that I'm going through, maybe I needed this setback to learn how things go whenever I do ABC, so that I can be the girl who accomplishes that next time or gets that next time. So these setbacks are making you the person, these setbacks are making you the girl that eventually does end up there, wherever quote unquote there is. Another thing that you can do to prep is focus less on results. So start to do this now, less on results and focus more on effort. So even when something goes well, let's not focus on the number on the scale that you're excited you got the results of. Let's focus on the effort that got you there. Like, wow, I ate pretty healthy meals that still made me feel full, and I had a few treats here and there, and that was great. And the effort of, for the majority, focusing on what it made me feel full and comfortable in my skin, that effort paid off. Or, in your job search, if or you just got a promotion, let's say, instead of being like, yes, I got a promotion. First of all, you go, girl. So proud of you. But you got a promotion. Instead of doing that, focus on the efforts like that led up to that. So, I was proactive and on time to all meetings, and I contributed. I was I was a high performer. I spent a lot of time working with my accounts, my clients. This is kind of specific to my job, but you can apply it to your job. But I did a really, really good job serving these people that I was serving in my job, and I got acknowledged for that. And those efforts paid off. So let's focus on effort and less about results, because then when the results aren't what you want, you're still going to be able to applaud yourself for the efforts that you took to get there, and focus on efforts that you may need to get to the next step after that. Lastly, I will say I really think that you should start some sort of ritual. I hope that I stay on track with this, but I have been doing a morning meditation. I feel like it's really making a change for me, and I do think it would benefit me more probably right before bed or like midday or something, because in the mornings I'm so groggy and my mind is so tired that I feel like it's already so slow. I don't need to slow it down with meditation. But sometimes, like with overthinking and anxiety and things and upsetting thoughts, that's when it would serve me better. But just getting in the habit of doing it, I think, you can do meditation anytime, any place. But if you haven't practiced it, it's a lot harder to actually just pick up in the middle of the day. So I do think that that would be a great ritual to start, or some sort of gratitude journaling. I'm all about affirmations. When you wake up and brush your teeth, tell yourself, I'm worthy, I'm valuable, I deserve love, I deserve success, whatever that may be for me. I deserve the life that I'm dreaming of, and I deserve greatness. Yeah, just what I mean, you can go on and on with your affirmations, but just I think that having like some sort of practice that's going to help you so much. And I think that that's one thing that lately I've noticed like I kind of slipped off on, because before I have a whole morning routine episode. I'll look up what episode it was. It was kind of early on in the podcast, but if you want to hear about my morning routine, I do feel like I share some tips about how you can start your own morning routine and where I started, because I have like a 2-year morning routine, or 2-hour morning routine now, but it didn't start that way. And so in episode 10, we talked all about morning routines and how like I did not used to be a morning bird. I hated waking up early, and I would sleep in late, and I would wake up 10 minutes before I had to be somewhere. And now I just love my morning routine. So anyway, getting off topic a little bit, but in my morning routine, I used to have some sort of, it changed a little bit depending on the season, but some sort of gratitude journaling, or I am meditation or affirmation, or some sort of like I would write down, I would have a guided journal or something like that. And so I've realized that I haven't had that for about a year. Like I haven't been doing that regularly in the mornings. And so implementing these meditations or something like that, I do think it works wonders for your brain and for your mindset and mentality. And that if you have that going for you, it's going to make you it's just going to make you think of disappointment differently and think of yourself differently. And I think you'll ease into giving yourself grace a little bit better than what I've been experiencing lately. So just again, like reflecting on my past and trying to learn from it as best I can, and realizing like I do think I was able to shake off discouragement and disappointment a little bit more before. And I think that that is a big thing. So implementing some sort of ritual, I'd love to hear what you're doing if you do. And then in summary, I just want to say again, disappointment is so real. It's so valid. You should definitely acknowledge it, acknowledge all of the feelings that come up for you, because they bubble up. And if you don't acknowledge them, you're going to explode at some point. And then overall, grace is the way that we soften disappointment and give ourselves the space to move forward and progress. So if you're in a season of disappointment, girl, I feel you. You are not alone, and I love you. And I just want you to know that your worth is not tied to an outcome. Your worth is not tied to results. This is something that I need to hear too. So I just want you to know that I feel you. I love you. I'm sorry. That sucks. Let's talk about it. And then let's give ourselves some grace and remind ourselves that our value is not tied to what we can achieve. So I'm proud of you. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I hope you love this episode. And if you did, please share it with a friend or a loved one. I would really appreciate it. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. Those go such a long way. If you're on YouTube, drop us a comment. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Tell us if you like my new co-host who doesn't really talk that much, because you can see that it's edited on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, give us a 5-star rating. We would love that. And I actually do think you can comment on Spotify. I learned that recently. So sorry if you've been doing that and I missed it, but you can do that as well. And yeah, just hope that you have a great week. Hope that you enjoyed this episode and want you to give yourself some grace. So cheersing myself today. Cheers.